Welcome to A Place for Film, the IU Cinema podcast. On this week's episode, we're talking about The Puppet's Master. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. My name is Andy Hunsucker.
And I'm Jason Thompson.
And this week on the show, we've got two filmmakers, director Dylan Cashbaugh.
Hi, everybody.
And producer Jon Stante.
Good afternoon, good evening, or good night.
All right. Whenever you're watching. So we're talking this week about Dylan's film, The Puppet's Master, which screened at the IU Cinema back in May. And I saw this film and I said, Dylan, you got to come on the show. And I expected this to happen like immediately, toot sweet. And he said, yeah, I'm leaving town. And so we managed to get Dylan back just in time to get this show in. So thank you, Dylan, for coming on.
Oh, I'm happy to be
and bringing Jon Stante with you and his beard.
He followed me. I did not want him to come, but he came.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about The Puppet's Master. Now, Dylan, I've been familiar with your work since, you were part of my real introduction to like, oh, wow, there's good student film out here, which was Manila Envelopes. So you started Manila Envelopes as like a parkour, assassin, like running around chasing people. And then I knew you were involved in Student 7, and I saw you in a couple other things. So I just kind of assumed you were like all about martial arts. Like that's all you cared about. So when I heard that you were doing a movie, directing a movie, I was like, you know what? It's probably going to be like a martial arts action-y thing, maybe like some humor. Never in my life did I expect to sit down to Puppet's Master and see a silent film with Victorian costumes and about puppets in love. So where did you get the idea for this movie? Because I was fascinated by just the concept.
With that background, maybe this won't surprise you. I got the idea while I was at stunt school.
Oh, okay.
So it actually was one of my friends there had an idea that was, we were doing like making scenes for fights, and he had like a puppet-based scene. And I saw it, and I was like, the first thing I thought was, I need to take this and make it into a film, because it was just... it was just such a cool concept to me of like these life-size puppets cutting their strings. Mm-hmm. And I took that and I just adapted it for film. Of course, I kept fight scenes in, so at least there was that. Though,
definitely.
Not the most martial artsy fight scenes in that they are by puppets, thus they move a little awkwardly. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was just seeing like this performance of it and thinking right away, I need to make this into a movie, and just kind of slowly getting to the point where I had worked out a story enough and then got other people to also be at least somewhat excited about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So when did you decide it was going to be a silent film?
I guess I never really intended it to be a silent film. It just, as I was writing it, no dialogue seemed appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a scream in it. I guess that's kind of a spoiler. And I like looking, I don't know. I just, as I was writing it, it never seemed appropriate for the puppets to speak, and the one human character. I mean, it just never felt right to have any sound.
Yeah.
And then, well, we actually did record sound on set of like movement and things like that. But then in post-production, we just decided, it kind of works really well as a silent film. Let's just keep it that way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I'm very happy with that. It's because it actually was very inspired by The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, at least in its like visual style.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of having it be this homage to early silent film is something that I'm pretty happy about, and hope that came through.
Yeah, I think so. So Jon, you were the producer on this.
Yes.
How did you get involved?
Oh, I can't remember the month. Dylan, do you remember the month?
I believe it was in November.
November.
But I could be wrong.
Dylan asked if I would sit down with him and talk about his most recent film project, and this was it. So we talked about it briefly, and it's one of those things that's unique enough that, I don't want to say unique enough. It was more than unique. It was quite unique to draw my attention and to win my heart. So after that, the rest is history.
Yeah. Was there a script at that point, or was he just describing it to you?
He described it to me
Was
at
he
that
acting
moment.
it out?
At that meeting, he described it. Dylan's a
I'm
good
really
puppet.
bad at being a puppet. No, thank God the actors can pull it off.
Yeah.
Yeah, he described it to me, and then later, almost immediately after that meeting, sent me a script over, and looked it over.
You guys sound so Hollywood. Yeah, he sent me a script over. It was no big deal.
That's just unglamorous
Now I'm
details.
Hollywood. For those of you watching,
Sorry,
I'm Hollywood now.
He emailed me a script
Yes.
digitally.
He had his people call your people.
Yes,
and
exactly.
yeah.
And my PDA and his PDA.
Actually, I think it was in that first meeting
Synced up.
that Jon came up with one of the best ideas in the whole production that to this day, every time people watch it, they ask about. And that's, how did we get the strings to work? Because I mean, anyone who's seen it, there's strings that just go up out of screen and it goes into darkness and you can't tell where they come from.
Mm-hmm.
And at that first meeting, one of the things that I brought up was, I don't know how we're going to do this. I don't know if we'll have to have some kind of rigging set up to the ceiling where we tie them to it. And this is a secret that I will reveal. Jon came up with the idea of, let's just tie balloons to the strings. And that way it moves with them. It looks a lot better. It's a lot easier and a lot
Dylan's
cheaper.
lying. There was a giant puppeteer above the set.
Sorry to ruin the...
controlling those puppets.
Were they SAG? Were they a SAG member?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. We do
I didn't know
legit.
if they, depending on size, if they would cover an actor of that
it's like
size.
Yeah.
5 SAG actors and
Okay.
that one giant.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A lot of red tape.
giant pay in SAG. Oh, so difficult to afford.
So the audition process, were there people who just didn't get it? How did you judge whether or not they were puppet enough for your shoot?
A lot, actually.
It's a reality show.
All of the puppets were people that I thought of pretty much right away.
Mm-hmm.
If you know Taylor Krauser, you can envision him as a cowboy with just throw the mustache on him.
Yeah, I've seen him in several things and stage plays around campus.
Mm-hmm.
I get
I
you.
knew that I wanted a cowboy, a kind of ballerina like character, and then just your kind of young gentlemanly type fellow. These were just the first people that I thought of, and I talked to them about it. And I actually didn't even know that Leslie, the damsel, I didn't even know she had dance experience. She just looked the part, and she was like, "Yeah, I'd done ballet," and I was like, "That's perfect."
Yeah.
So I got them together, and we actually the fight choreographer that we had also kind of worked with them a little bit on their movement. That was Thomas Greenwood, and he kind of got them moving like puppets pretty quickly. And I watched it, and it was, yep, that's exactly how you should move.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't like auditioning them to move like puppets. They were the first people that I thought of, and apparently I thought right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought the cast was really great. So what about your puppeteer? Kate Walsh. Kate Braun. We've seen her in everything.
Yeah,
She's in like every student film, but
which isn't a bad thing.
Not a bad thing at all. She's great. So how did she get involved? I mean, was it just obvious that it was going to be her?
That was early on. We weren't really sure what kind of a character we wanted for that. I kind of sent out, feelers, emails, and posts to see, hey, does anybody, kind of like a woman at this age range, and we weren't really sure we weren't even sure like how old we wanted her to be, how like what the character would be like. And eventually we were just like, what about Kate? I mean, she's in everything, but we know she works well and she's really professional on set. She can do a lot of things, and she has just a really unique look. She has that like great wispy hair, and yeah, we thought about it and emailed her, and she was all for it. So,
I mean, was there that hesitancy because she's sort of in everything that you just not think?
There was a little bit of hesitancy because of that, but I mean, she's in everything because she's good. Yeah. So it wasn't.
Was that character always a woman? In your mind?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And you weren't shooting at the factory, so you blocked out the other sort of cliche of IU student filmmaking. So
yeah, it had Kate. But it wasn't at there. So
at the factory. Where did you shoot it, by the way? What was that room?
That was in the Bryan room in the Indiana Memorial Union.
I thought it looked like the Union. I wasn't sure exactly where you might have shot it, but yeah, it had like the high ceilings and
and we brought in a lot of set decoration. Angela Sururi was our what was she? Art director.
Art director, yeah.
Yeah, and she just went out and found tons of crazy props. I don't even know where she found all of them. And we dragged them all in, lit a bunch of candles, made it look a little creepy, and then made everything else dark so that it was kind of, hard to tell what the space was.
Yeah. So the look of the film is really, really nice. So what were you shooting on?
It was shot on DSLRs. We used a Canon 70 and a 60D. We had two cameras going almost all the time, but yeah, it was, I mean, they're just a really cheap way to get a really nice look, and being pretty poor, cheap is very important. Yeah. And I mean, like, especially at least in the IU film group, everybody has DSLRs. So finding the people that know how to use them, they know how to use them really well. Yeah. So we had two DPs that were great with them and knew how to make it quite pretty.
Yeah. So who were your DPs?
That was Catherine Begley and Kaz Tanner.
So how long did it take you to shoot? Because it seemed like you're all basically in one location for the most part. So how much time really did you have to work with this?
It was all in one location, but it was complicated to set up, and everything took a long time because, like we said, the balloons, we had to make sure they didn't get in the shot. And the lighting we wanted a very specific look on that, so that took a while to set up. So we took, was it 3 days in the Bryan room?
Yeah, I want to say.
Yeah, 3 days where we were shooting. We couldn't start shooting until the sun went down, and we would stay until, 2 or 3 in the morning?
Yeah, I'd say so, yeah.
And this was in winter, so the sun was down at 7. So we had 3 days in a row where we were probably shooting 6 to 8 hours.
Yep, and we had to, working that out with the IMU was tough because the IMU has events and reservations in all of their rooms. So, yeah, we struggled with that a little bit, but obviously came through. That's it.
Well, that was I guess I think we had planned on only 2 nights.
Right. We had one there. Yeah.
And then we took the first day came and we took a lot longer to get going just because making puppets, making people into puppets is also surprisingly complicated.
Right. Exactly. And when taking on something like this where you're creating such a unique story world, such a different story world than anything that we've done before. I think we ended up under budgeting, time, allowance,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's something that, as budding filmmakers, you learn to compensate for. But yeah, that was definitely one of our struggles with this, was just creating this world and knowing exactly what it takes to create this world. The miniature set that we built, that we had the fly through at the beginning, took us, I don't even want to estimate the man hours that it took us. I mean, at least 150 man hours to build that set. I mean, and for people who haven't seen it, it's a 10 by 10 miniature city that we built. Kind of a Dr. Seussian miniature city.
Yeah, designed by Sahar Pastel-Daneshkar.
Exactly, yeah. With help from many people.
Oh,
I
God.
mean,
we had 5-6 people working in there at a time, several nights a week, just painting, constructing houses, laying moss down, building little trees. That was my favorite part, was the building of the trees, because we actually broke apart like pine branches and then re-glued them back together, of course, because they didn't look tree-like enough just the way they were.
Yeah.
And I burnt my hand several times on hot glue.
hot glue, yeah.
I think we all had injuries from that hot glue.
We all had injuries, or were very...
Also, we were in a
very high.
basement where it was winter, so it was really cold, so we had to keep the door closed. But we were working with hot glue. We were spray painting in there. We were all probably really high.
Yeah.
How much time did you spend on like the marionette stage? Because you had like a real marionette stage in there. Did you build that yourselves? Do you know someone who does puppeteering?
Yeah, Sahar knew someone that was like, a wood smith or something. And
Carpenter,
maybe. That's the word. I guess he was a carpenter or a woodsmith, as some people say. That's a very common expression.
He was an apprentice woodsmith.
So this woodsmith built us this stage, and then Sahar painted it, added some, the curtains and such.
Yeah.
And actually, we weren't originally going to have like the life-size version as well, because it was just complicated, expensive, and all that. But Kaz was all whiny and was like, "No, we need to have this." And it turns out she was absolutely right.
Yeah.
It was a really good thing that we had that, because it looked.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot.
Whining with a point.
Yeah. It's interesting though, because there's the Puppet Master horror movies. One of the not Friday the 13th, one of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies sort of had a sequence where there was a marionette, and your thing kind of has like a horror vibe to it as well. What's the deal with marionettes in horror? Why are we so terrified of marionettes? Because it seems to be a recurring theme in
into
horror.
The subconscious.
I blame the French.
Yeah,
The French.
Well, at least
that's a good place to start.
my interpretation of that is what we fear is being controlled, and that's what's great about marionette puppets is they're very human-like. But
Way
they have,
too deep for this show.
I know. I'm sorry that I'm getting into the symbolism of the Puppets Master.
You're not Jim Naramore, so let's just bottle that out.
Save that for Jim.
I made a movie. It's pretty. How's that?
So I did want to ask you about the music, though, because I thought the music was like really appropriate and really, really good. I don't. Did you have someone compose it? Was it stock?
Yeah, it was back actually from my martial arts days. One of the men who taught me kung fu was also a classical guitar major at IU.
This sounds like a plot for a movie.
It does. And in the very first movie that I made here, I was talking to him about it, and he was like, it was a Hitchcock-inspired movie. And he was like, I love Hitchcock. Can I make a score for you? And I was like, yeah, sure. And that kind of started our relationship of him scoring movies that I make. And I think The Puppets Master was maybe the 4th short that I've made that he's scored.
Oh, wow.
And he's actually, he goes to NYU now. He's studying film scoring at NYU. So we communicated all electronically, and he made this awesome score for it.
Did you have anything else, Jason?
No, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it quite a bit. So I was very impressed.
Yeah. Cool. So thanks, guys, so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Look forward to what you guys are doing next.
That's great.
So Dylan, I know you're sort of getting out there in the world. Do you have anything specific you're working on right now?
Yeah, actually, I should mention that. Tomorrow, I start shooting the first feature film that I've been director of photography for.
Oh, wow.
It's called Ingenue. Kate Chaplin is writing and directing it, and we start shooting tomorrow. We've got about 3 weeks that we're shooting. Yeah, it's all over the Facebooks and the Twitters.
Yeah.
And so there will be updates on there, but it's called Ingenue, Ingenue. So if you want to look into that, it'll probably be pretty awesome. It's kind of it's a sci-fi kind of suburban set. It'll be the best movie you've ever seen, I assure you.
Okay. You heard it. You heard it here first, folks. He's best movie you've ever seen. That's all right. Mm-hmm. And John, I know you're still in town now. I guess
definitely in town for the time being, and not going through production for anything right now. Developing a couple of different projects for next summer and kind of in the coming months, I should say.
Yeah.
So yeah, nothing Fast and Furious in production right now for me.
So you're not doing Fast and Furious 6. That's what you're saying.
I didn't say that.
Okay.
He can't talk about that at this time.
I can't talk about that. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so let's get out of here. Thank you guys for listening and watching. I'm Andy.
I'm Jason.
This has been, and always will be, A Place for Film. A Place for Film is recorded at WFIU Studios in Bloomington, Indiana.